One of the babies broke my water on the 27th of December. Thank goodness that happened. That was by the grace of God. And we went in, they delivered the first one, which was my boy, and he's fine. And they take up the second one, and the doctor tells me she's not breathing. And they couldn't resusc her, and she died. And then they take out the third one, and she's fine. Suddenly, you have two babies that you have to be happy for, and you have one that now passed away, and you have to deal with these emotions.
Welcome to M-powerTV, where we leave a legacy of hope through conversations that uplift, educate, and inspire. Listen to incredible stories of people who overcame challenges and barriers, celebrate victories, learn from setbacks, and push forward together.
And you would hear all this torture, and then they would shoot.
Want to be empowered? Let's go. Subscribe for more and get this book now.
Hello and welcome to M-powerTV. My name is Lorna Grayling, and today we're going to be talking about motherhood and self-discovery. Two topics very close to my heart. And joining us all the way from South Africa is Ruth Braun. Ruth, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Ruth, we're going to talk about motherhood and self-discovery because you have a phenomenal story to share with us. But take us back, because you're an amazing entrepreneur. You were very successful in your career, modeling, working, having your own business, and then moving into motherhood from there. But take us back to that life as Ruth, the entrepreneur, the professional, the workaholic, the the kind of success that you were reaching at that time. Tell us a little bit what you were doing, what that was like, and share that time with us.
Life before kids is definitely very different. You have so much time and drive, and you're not sleep deprived. So you feel you can take over the world and like conquer the world. And that was what I did, following passion, following things that I enjoyed, which was fashion, working with young people. So I did do quite a lot of modeling on the side. At a stage, I had my own modeling school. And it brought me to New York at a stage. We went to New York Fashion Week. We did all these amazing things, but it did come to quite a screaming halt when when I started a family. I continued studying. My first child, I studied psychology, and that was amazing, and I loved it. And I kept on working during that time. After a while, we had triplets, and it's a very complicated pregnancy. So in that time, I stopped everything. Life kind of changes so much that you kind of have to reevaluate, and you're now wondering what lifestyle is about.
Yeah, completely the opposite, right? So I'm going to take us a few steps back, right? Because literally this is a lot of people might be watching, and they have this passion and this drive that you have, because some people are just born with this energy and this drive and this passion. And I know you, for many years, we used to do modeling together. And everything I know about you is whatever you touch is super successful. Like, you turn anything and everything into this phenomenal entrepreneurial business or opportunity. So, I mean, what is that like, being that Ruth? Because you're the way I see you, and I could be wrong, like I see you as this real exciting person who just has an enormous drive.
Well, that's accurate, I guess. I think that's a personality type. Some people just love being entrepreneurs, love just going for it, and I think that does sum it up quite well. Many years. I feel like it's such a long time ago, but having focus and being able to just run with an idea, put all of your time and all of your effort into it, creating a new kind of world that I feel that's what entrepreneurs do. They create little worlds to function in. And that's definitely what I did.
There's an excitement to that world, right? I mean, I can even see you light up while you're talking about it, which, I mean, I can see how much it meant to you because you were
Yes.
so good at it.
Yeah, it's who you are. It's your essence. It's kind of, there's something inside of you that drives you. You don't need someone to tell you to go and do something because you're already fueled to do it.
I love it.
And yeah, the passion for, I think if it's something that you enjoy doing, right, you're going to do it well and you're going to be running with it.
Yeah.
If it's something you don't like doing and you go to a job that is like making your soul die, then it's not going to be great. I had a conversation today with two really amazing young people, entrepreneurs that just launched a new golfing brand, also, you know, in like style, and it's amazing, and they're taking over the States and they're taking over Europe, and there's 16 countries, and they're like, this company is a year old.
Amazing.
But just before that, the designer, the whole creative behind it, he was in a job that he hated. And he very quickly realized that he's not a corporate. He's not supposed to be. He's not meant to be there. And when he took the chance and he's like walked out,
That leap of faith, right?
something amazing.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that because literally just in our previous episode, and it hasn't been aired yet, so you wouldn't have seen it, but we just filmed an episode with someone in the exact same topic came up, right? Is that being stuck in a job where you're unhappy and, you know, how much that physically affects you. We think it's only mental health, but once your mental health is affected for such a long time, it actually affects you physically, physical illnesses.
Yes.
And then getting out of that, like taking that leap of faith. But Ruth, so, I mean, you had this phenomenal life and career. You were traveling the world, business, and I can see how you light up when you talk about businesses and, you know, all the excitement that comes around. What made you decide that you wanted children? Like, what made you decide, like, now is a good time, I want to be a mom?
Oh, to be quite very, very honest, my sentence went like this: husband, do we want children? Because I don't really mind. Like, I'd love to have kids, or we decide we don't have kids and we'll be that couple and we'll be traveling the world and we'll take the world over and it's great, or we have kids and our world changes, and that's also fine. But my grandmother, actually, she was the one, she came to me and said, Ruth, she was a German lady, very like straightforward. And she just said, you know what, one day when you're my age, and she was almost 90, she said, there'll be no one around you. And everything you see around you won't be here, because this is because I had like my children. And it made me think about family and about what was important to me as a person, because it's really difficult if you're an entrepreneur to have a family. And if you're used to traveling, now everything changes. And but I did decide that that is what I wanted. So we went on a journey. We didn't fall pregnant easily, and we had to go through the whole IVF process. We had a miscarriage. Then we had our first son. And
what was that like, right? You talk through it like it's you know, just a process. And then I get it, because a lot of people go through that, right? So we feel like, well, a lot of people are doing it, a lot of people are experiencing that, so it's, you know, we should be able to just get through it. But I mean, what was that like, you know, being in that process, trying to fall pregnant and not being able to, because you were so successful at everything else that you did, and then trying to fall pregnant, which is the one natural thing that should be easy, it just wasn't, right?
Yeah, it was. That was really hard. For some reason, going through the whole process, not falling pregnant was in the back of my head. It was fine, because I knew there's options, and we went for all the tests, and all my tests are fine, and my husband's tests are fine, and they just don't know why it's not happening. And you know, when you start having a schedule and you have to, like, today we have to try and tomorrow we have to, you know, then it's no more fun. And so we went through the IVF process, and it wasn't bad for me at all. There's a lot of times that women really struggle with the process, and it's hard on them. I was really fortunate to have a very good process. I had good doctors. My body did well. I didn't get sick. like everything went really, really fine. And I was actually on my way to a shoot. And I remember the doctor calling me and saying, there's something wrong with my counts. I need to come in. And it was early in the morning, like 7 o'clock. And I'm like, listen, I've got a shoot at 8. Like I'll pop by. And they told me it's an ectopic pregnancy and they have to terminate it now. And, you know, you have to kind of, now you're on your way where you have to smile, you have to be perfect. And I had to phone my husband, and he's traveling at that time. And I had to phone him and I had to tell him, listen, I'm about to do this. Like, this is going to happen because it's life-threatening. You know, it's just not, you can't go on with this. And I'll never forget that moment. That was my first pregnancy experience. But you know what? As I said, I had a really amazing doctor, and he spoke to me and he told me, and I'm telling you this because maybe it'll mean something to someone out there, that because I was fortunate enough that you didn't have to abort, you didn't have to lose the baby, your body kind of absorbs the little embryo. And in my mind, for me, it meant like the baby never went away. Like it went and it became back like part of you again. And that was for me quite like reassuring. Like it gave me peace.
I love that.
Yeah, so it was a rocky start. But then we had to wait quite a couple of months for your body to get back into sync, and then you start the process again. And then we put 2 eggs back, and I fell pregnant with my son, and we got one beautiful boy, healthy, a good pregnancy, no problems.
Lovely. Oh my God. And he is so cute. I've seen it. I've met him and I've seen the photos as he's growing. So it's so exciting to see the journey. And so Ruth, what was that like the initial motherhood? So it's one baby, it's picture perfect, everything looks great. But what did it feel like to you as a entrepreneur and a I don't want to say the word workaholic, but for me, like I was a total workaholic when I had my first child. And I don't know, it was, I mean, I spoke about it in another interview. It was quite traumatizing for me, you know, having my first child. I don't know what hit me.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like workaholic is a good word. I remember I'm going into labor. And I was studying my psychology at that stage. So I asked the doctor, does she mind? I've got my Zoom call on the side. The class is going and I can't miss the class. And my books are next to my bed, but I'm like in labor.
Oh my goodness.
Looking back, I'm like, really, Ruth? Like, what were you thinking? But, you know, so your head is still...
You're still in work mode.
Where you want to get.
Yeah.
But... So then baby comes, everything changes, and you realize, and there was a definite part of me that the change for a woman becoming a mother, you mourn, you have to say goodbye to a part of you, to a person that you were, that you will never be again.
Yeah.
And there's so much that was added, but you lose something. And you have to say, like, it was very hard. Like, I really went through a mourning process where I had to kind of deal with my decision and my new world and my new life and how to put everything together.
Yes, I can so relate with that. But I love the way that you phrase that, right? Is there a moment in time where you realized this truth? Like, did you have to mourn a piece of yourself? Because initially, I mean, how do you actually know that, right? You're just in this new world and it's so different from what you had. And like, so how did you start realizing that you've actually lost a piece of yourself and you have to mourn that piece, right?
I think it was just the fact that I just realized I can't do what I used to do, or I can't be who I used to be. And there was just so many changes. And maybe that was just where the Holy Spirit came and said, you know, you have to work through this. And the same as with, you know, when you have to mourn the death of someone, there was this saying, I can't remember who said it, but like to say that grief is a social person, and you have to sit with grief and you have to work with her and spend time with her. And it's the same thing. It's you have to go and sit in the moment and experience it and be honest with yourself and say, it's okay to feel like this, and this is what's happening. And then you have to decide what you're going to do with that and how you're moving forward. So I think it was just in the moment. It's like Holy Spirit led that you get like the moment that you're working through it.
Amen. Absolutely. And I love that, Holy Spirit led, because I feel like that realization is so powerful. And that's where the healing starts. It's once we realize this truth, right? Like, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? Like, why is nothing working out? Why is this turmoil inside of me where I'm constantly fighting against me, my circumstances? It just, it's exhausting. It can cause huge depression and anxiety and, just exhaustion. But then having that Holy Spirit led aha moment, like, wow, all right, this is what I need to do. And then to go and implement that truth. That is super powerful. So Ruth, and then, you guys decided on having another, but then you felt pregnant with triplets, right? What went through your mind? When I saw your post of having triplets, I thought, oh my goodness.
Yeah. It was quite funny. We went for our first scan and the doctor saw two. And I'm like, okay, we've got twins. But I could swear I saw a third one. But I didn't ask because obviously the doctor would say, right? So I just left it. But in my head, like I knew I saw a third one. The next couple of weeks later, we go for our second scan. And again, the doctor just brushes over it. And I'm like, but doctor, just check. Like, are you sure there's not a third one? And he looks at me and he goes and he scans and he stops and he goes completely quiet. And he scans again and he goes, oh my goodness, there's a third one. And both him and my husband go like ash white. They're both back in shock.
Yes, I would too. I would pass out. Like literally, I would just pass out. Because I know the amount of work and energy it took for me to have one at a time, right? And now I have three, but just to have one. And now three at once and a little toddler. And he was, what was he, like 1 or 2 at the time? How old was he?
One. He was 1.
Oh my God.
Just under 1 still. Yeah.
No way.
Crazy.
My goodness. Oh, alrighty. So how did the journey unfold from there? Because I know then you went through a huge loss. Tell us a little bit about how that happened.
So first you start with, so that was still at the fertility clinic, and then you go over to your gynae, and it's quite a process choosing the right one because multiples already is high risk. Triplets is very high risk. So you need to find someone that knows kind of what they're doing. So I go to the doctor that he's amazing, that's normally doing multiples. And luckily for me, he's close to my house. So that was also just grace from God. And the first day he meets me, he looks at me and says, I think I need to see you and your husband because this is going to be a difficult road. So we get in and he explains what's happening and why. And it's just that your body and the space, it's just so high risk for having 3. And he was right. It's a technical pregnancy. It's not you're beautiful, like you're flowing and life is beautiful and now you're excited. It's checkups every week I think it's somewhere in your second trimester almost. You can't walk anymore. Your body, it's so sore that you literally can't walk. I remember I had to get out of the house and I told my mom, who came from Cape Town to visit, like, you're taking me to the mall. And I had to go and ride in one of those little cars that the old people ride in because I couldn't walk. But I had to get out.
Wow.
Soon after that, I was hospitalized. I was hospitalized a couple of times. Really I had to go in for a different op so that they can put in, they call it a stitch, so that the babies don't fall out. And they have to keep the babies in there for as long as possible. It's in South Africa, at most hospitals, if your baby is born super prem, like 25 weeks, they terminate the pregnancy. They don't see it as viable because most babies then have brain damage and things like that. So my doctor was just aiming to get me past that point. And we did. Got far past that. We got to 30 weeks, then we got to 31 weeks, then we got to 32 weeks.
How does it feel like the interim, right? Because I know when, this is totally different, but when my husband was kidnapped, right, those days felt like years. Like the hours literally felt like days and weeks. And then I would look at the watch and like an hour has passed. Because just of the uncomfortable, you know, and I mean, it's a kidnapping, but this is pregnancy. But I can imagine, like, for some people that are very driven, very dynamic, very, you know, go, and now you're stuck and you can't move, you can't get out of the house, you're now in bed bound, hospital bound.
Yes. Oh God.
How do you keep your mind sane? Like, how did you keep your mind sane during that time?
As soon as we found out it's triplets, I basically that same week let the university know that I won't be continuing the studies, and I cried so much about that because psychology is really a passion for me, but there's just no chance I can put that stress on the pregnancy. So that had to stop. We moved house in that time. And we renovated a very old house. So we were building. It was chaos. And then I had my little toddler who he wanted to be carried, and I couldn't carry him anymore. So there was a lot going on that could keep me distracted. But you know what? I think the fact that you have to stay healthy, the fact that it's so very medical and technical, it took all of my attention and all of my energies. So I actually didn't even think about anything else at that stage, rather than just getting through this phase.
So almost seeing that as a project, right? That helped you, seeing the pregnancy as a project, because that's powerful.
Yes.
I mean, that can totally help someone, right?
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Going to hospital was the hardest. Leaving my little boy at home, it was horrible for me. It was there was a stage, I think I was in hospital maybe for 4 weeks, and the doctor in the end just said, like, Ruth's going to go completely insane. Rather than falling further into the depression, send her home, be on bed rest, but no, like, you have to be mentally and emotionally strong. And if you can't do that, you're not going to be a good mother to the babies that you still have to have. So
did it affect your mental state to such a point that the doctor saw that and sent you actually back home? I can imagine, because I can totally imagine that for me that would be suicide, like lying in a bed stuck.
Yes, it was terrible. Sitting still, like I am a person with a lot of energy, so sitting still is not in my nature. And now just not being able to move, it's different because your body can't, and you have pain when you move. So it is different, and you're tired because there's 3 little babies growing now. So that was a process, and we got through it. But then December came, the week of week 33, and we were aiming for 34. So we were aiming, my doctor was aiming for the 1st of January, and we would have had a C-section. But after many complications and going back and forth to the hospital, having scans saying, like, I feel like something's wrong, the babies aren't moving as much as I'm used to. I actually got dismissed by one of the sisters. It was terrible. She just waved me away. And probably just a couple of days later, one of the babies broke my water on the 27th of December. Thank goodness that happened. That was by the grace of God. So 27th at 6 o'clock in the morning, we're rushing to the hospital. And we have our C-section, and they still, right before you go in, they still do the sonar, and everything looks fine. And we went in, They deliver the first one, which is my boy, and he's fine. And they take out the second one, and the doctor tells me she's not breathing. And they have to resus, and they couldn't resus her, and she died. And then they take out the third one, and she's fine. And he keeps on telling me, Ruth, there was something wrong with the second baby, and you're like in this moment, right? And you're focusing, and you're like, okay, it's fine. Like my mind's like, I sort it out now. I'll sort it. Like it's fine. And you have to just suddenly you have two babies that you have to be happy for, and you have one that now passed away, and you have to deal with these emotions. And they think that my little girl Lily passed away a day or two before. So I would have gone into septic shock had the water not broken, and it would have been like really hectic. So it's all by the grace of God. Like God is in every moment, and it doesn't matter like how hectic and crazy it gets. Like He's still there, and there's still reasons for this. And like it was a difficult journey to get where I am today, but like now you cope with it, and you understand like this is life, happens to everyone.
Wow, Ruth, I mean, just listening through that, I literally feel like, you know, that loss of that grief of losing the baby, and yet now you have two healthy babies. Like, how did you conquer that? Because did you get any professional help, or did you just have to muscle through it? Let me ask you that.
So I gave this a lot of thought, because I was advised to get to get help. Number one, again, having a great medical team is, if you do have that, I mean, you're so lucky. And I did. And the doctor came to me and said, you have to hold the baby. I'm like, no, I'm not going to hold the baby. I'm like, you're kind of in shock, and you don't know exactly what you want. And he's like, you have to say goodbye. And he went to my husband probably 4 or 5 times and said, Ruth needs to say goodbye. You cannot not do that. So he kept on coming back, till the point where my husband really said, Ruth, maybe just do it. So I did it, and they brought the baby. And I'm so, like, that was the first step into saying goodbye, into like dealing with the grief. And I'm forever thankful for that doctor for insisting, because you could then see your little girl, you could say goodbye, and you could give her away, and you say, now this is like, it's over. And that was step number 1. Then it's really a journey, and I think it's a personal journey. I considered getting professional help going through it, but then you start talking about it, and that's very important, is talking about it. And you realize that there's so many other women that's gone through this, whether it's just a miscarriage or friends, really close friends that's also in labor, lost their children, and you see them and you realize they've gotten through this, and it gives you hope. And so I did not get the professional help in the end, which I completely think I can still go for.
Yeah.
You know, it's never too late, because grief hits you, it blindsides you. You know, every now and again, I still mourn Lily's death. Decembers are hard for me, but I have on my own found peace and been able to pray through it and sit with God on it. And that helped me to a point where I can today say, I remember we actually spoke about this maybe a year ago, and I told you, Lorna, I'm not ready. And then now, a year later, I'm like, my heart's healed. You know, I've gotten there.
What do you feel happened in the last year for you to be able to sit here and literally go through this painful process, you know, and being able to go through it and talk about it?
The first thing that comes to mind is just time. You have to give yourself time. You have to be honest with yourself and say you're allowed to grieve. I looked at the world different. I think my hormones were very, just unregulated. Like, it wasn't fine. I wasn't fine. I wasn't sleeping because I had 3 little ones. At the stage I had 3 under 2, and then I had 3 under 3, and it was just a chaos in my house. And sometimes you didn't even have time to grieve. You didn't have time to think. And then at the stage you realize I have to go sit now, and you have to just cry, that ugly cry. You have to like get it all out there.
Yeah.
And that's just what I did. I just gave myself some grace and time. And then one day I woke up and I'm like, wow, I feel better now.
Yeah.
But also with that, in this whole process, I realized that your group of people that surrounds you is so important. There's a story in the Bible that there was a war and he had to keep up his hands. I don't know if you remember.
Yes, I know exactly which story you're talking about.
When his hands were up, the war was won. And if he would let his hands down, they would lose.
Yes.
So he had 2 people that came and put him down on a rock, and he sat, and they held his hands up.
Yes.
So that they could win the war. And sometimes you don't have the energy, the power, the will. You have nothing emotionally more to give. You have nothing left. And what you need then are your people to keep your hands up. And there were days I could not pray. I just said God. I could not even say anything else. I just said God. And I knew I had people praying for me. They held my hands, and I could feel that in my spirit. And I realized that the people that you surround yourself, that is probably the most important thing when you're going through trauma and a difficult time, because they will be your strength. They will intercede. They will come and check on you. And that's what my community did for me. And that's, I think, a big part of it.
Yes. Oh, I can totally relate. When my husband was kidnapped, I felt that, like, my community and my people and my tribe around me, how their prayers physically strengthened me. Where was your husband in all of this? Like, how did he deal with the grief, and how did you support each other? Or could you not support each other? Because things like that, sometimes, it can strengthen a marriage or the relationship because it brings you closer, because you have this in common. Or, for a lot of people, that can totally just drive them apart, and a relationship and a marriage can be lost through it. How did it work for you?
Most men are not always emotionally that sensitive. I don't know, in tune. Where, I don't know, like, my husband handled it really well. Like, in the moment, that morning after losing Lily, that was really hard, and it was hard for him, and we were both crying. And then the journey going forward, gosh, he was my strength. We landed in ICU quite a lot of times with my daughter and the other one that survived. And I just remember him being so strong. And that's a whole story again for another day. But he kind of he didn't go, oh, Ruth, how are you doing? Or, can I give you a hug? But he was keeping the world standing, and he was just a rock, emotionally strong. He was just going on. He obviously is the business person. I was standing back. I was trying to recover, and he was just going for it. And every now and again, I would go back to him, and I'm like, but I had to learn to be vulnerable. I think entrepreneurs don't like being vulnerable, and I don't want to be weak, and I don't like crying in front of him. And I had to learn to do that. I had to go, and I would be all teary, and then I just decided, I'm going to cry in front of him, and I'm going to tell him I miss Lily, and I'm going through this, and we started communicating.
Wow.
And even though he was handling it differently, he supported me in my journey in how I had to grieve. So we definitely, came through this stronger, understanding each other more, and learning how to communicate with each other, because I needed to see that he also gets sad. I needed to know how his mind is processing everything, even though he's not one to be crying about it. I had to know that he's still feeling it, so we had to talk about it.
I think you mentioned something that for me, it just rang so powerfully. And that is the fact that you honored him for his strength, for standing strong. And a lot of times, you know, as women, like you said, we want to see that vulnerability in our husbands. We want to see them kind of cry and feel emotional like us, right? And they don't necessarily carry their grief that way. But for you to see him, the strength inside of him, you know, and honoring him for that is so powerful, because that's what it's about, right? Being married is having these two strengths. Is you're vulnerable, and that's awesome, and but he's this powerful thing, and it's not to try and change each other. Like, he can't be you, you can't be him. And often I feel like in a marriage and in a fight, we tend to forget that. We tend to fight about those things. Like, why doesn't he react this way? Because this is how I would feel better if he reacts this way. You know, I want to see him break down and cry. And yet that's not what he's going to do. Doesn't mean that he feels any less pain. But he's strong, and that's a benefit to the marriage and to the household. And both people can't sit, you know, and cry. One has to be strong, and sometimes it's the other one that's strong. And you know, we both have moments where we can lift each other up, but to give each other that space, man, that's super powerful. So now your kids are 3 years old and 2 years old, right? Am I correct?
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So, I mean, this is still a handful. I mean, I spoke to you the other day, you were in the car and the kids were in the car. I mean, I forgot what that was like. It was lovely to hear all the noise and the chaos and everything. And right. And so how did you find yourself again, Ruth? Because literally that's what we're talking about also, right? Is motherhood, but then finding yourself. Because you mentioned in the beginning, when you become a mom and you were a really driven and successful person, you do have to understand that you will lose a part of yourself, and you have to mourn that part of yourself.
Right.
So where are you now? And you know, how?
Well, when I had the twins, I mourned again. I mourned the mother with one child.
Yeah, it was a double mourning, right? You had to mourn the loss of your child and mourn another part of yourself that is lost.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It took me, Lorna, it took me really 2 years after having the twins to really start feeling just like a person again. Like, I couldn't remember anything. You could ask me my name, I'd probably not know. Like, it was just the craziest 2 years of my life. And everything changed. Like, your body changes. Like, suddenly my rib cage is bigger. You know, and like, when you do modeling, you realize your rib cage is bigger, right? Like, it's just, nothing sits the way it used to. And then now I had, let's say, like the 3 kids, you've not been in the shops for a very long time. So your clothes are outdated. And it sounds like such a small thing, but it's not. You walk out there and you're like, the style has gone from what I remember to being now back into the 90s. Like, we're wearing like big pants now, and it's not skinny jeans. And what's happening? And
you just lost 2 years of your life, right? It's gone.
Yeah. I'm like, what's
like the Twilight Zone? I'm woken up.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's what it feels like. And you're like, who am I now in this chaos with these 3 little ones? And suddenly you want to be more, because you know you've got so much to give, and you've got so, like, the potential, and you feel it inside of you. But now you have to find a new way of bringing it out, and it's a journey. I think it's still a journey for me now. I've now started 1 or 2 new projects, and like, you're busy.
Yeah, I hear you working already.
Yes, but slowly, and that's the hard thing, right? It's the small steps. Now you have to take small steps, because suddenly you think you're going to do something, but then one of the 3 kids don't sleep. So now you have 2 hours of sleep, and you have to wake up and be bright. And sometimes that's just important.
It's unrealistic, right?
Your kids are sick and you can't do the meetings, and life is just different. So how did I find myself? I'm still finding myself. I'm still exploring this new world, and how everything fits in. The biggest thing is having grace with yourself. It's understanding where you are in your season. I was in a hurry to get like out there. I was in a hurry to start working again. I was in a hurry to just create something, and it was wrong. Like, last year wasn't my season, and
That's powerful.
lost friends.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People judge you if they knew the old you. They expect you to be that, and then suddenly you're not that. And even though it's just for a season, there's not always grace in the world for that.
And that's painful too. That's another loss, right? If you're losing your friends because they don't grow with you or understand you and what you're going through in your season, I mean, that's super painful. Yeah.
And I think it's something a lot of moms face. Like, the change is so big that a lot of your old friends, and that's part of the mourning process, it's not that there's no more space for them. It's just that they don't fit, and they feel it, and it's okay. I had to make peace, and I prayed a lot about it, and God just said, just leave it. It's fine.
Yep. Just release.
Because this is just who I am, and this is who I am today, and maybe tomorrow it's a different me, and it's a bit like a lucky packet. How much did Ruth sleep?
Depends on the sleep deprivation, who you're gonna get today.
100% for me right now, and then so we grow. So I just realized, for me, in finding and discovering myself, it was self-care. It's being selfish. It's saying that I need to do self-care. I need to take care of myself. I need to go and have my hair done and not feel bad about it. I need to go and have a medi massage because I'm picking up 3 kids every day and I'm getting migraines because of the tension in my neck. And I feel like sometimes you think, oh, you're not allowed to do that, but you are. You must.
Yes. To take that time out, even though they're crying at home, saying, mommy, don't go. Like, you got to take that time out, right?
Yes, 100%. And you get to a point where, like, I've now learned the language of toddler, and preparation is key. So I let them know a day or two already in advance, this is what is happening. And then by the time I walk out of the door now, they're waving and say, bye, mama. So great.
Great advice. Yeah. Great advice.
But that was the first step of just finding yourself, is being selfish and saying, this is what I need, and I am taking it.
Yes. Very powerful. And I think that's where a lot of moms lack. I literally had this conversation a week ago with another studio guest, and we were talking about, putting the oxygen mask on yourself first and then helping your kids, like in an airplane, right? 100%. And it's that same thing. It kind of keeps on coming up. So I feel like this is something that, needs to be heard out there, is that it is important to take care of yourself. So important. Because if you're not okay, your family is not okay. And so we have to invest in ourselves as much as we can and do that self-growth and do that work within ourselves to be as healthy as we can mentally and physically. And so powerful. So right now, I mean, I know you're involved already in a lot of different projects, and you're just, I can see you like wanting to go like, and you're like one of those cars. But like, it might not be quite your season, right, for all the businesses and the things that are happening. So baby steps. How are you doing that? How are you implementing that? How are you finding that balance of motherhood and vision? But
it's a lot of self-talk.
A lot of self-talk. Okay, yeah.
Sit down.
Yes.
No, it's scheduling time is important. I learned that at this stage, I do not remember everything the way I used to. I don't know what happened, but after kids, my memory is not what it used to be. So lists are so important. and then choosing the right projects, because as soon as you get started, I mean, there's so much you can do, and you want to be here and you want to be there. And my husband's just like, whoa, let's talk about this. Luckily, I have that. I choose very carefully where I am investing my time, because my number one focus is my family and my children. So I must work around that. And then making sure once that I've got that scheduled, I've got them fine, I know everyone's happy, then after that I'm starting to little by little put in my meetings, like seeing where I can touch base on things. I make phone calls. I've done a lot of market research, making sure that, is this what you want to do? Do you really want to tap into that market? Like, because now you've been out of it for so long. So
is that scary? Coming back after 3 years into the, working world full force, and so much has changed. And like you say, you've been out of it for so long,
Right.
How do you conquer that?
Scary, no. Exciting, yes. So I wouldn't say it's scary. It's exciting because it's new and it's stimulating. I just feel more cautious that I need to, before making a decision or before going into a direction, I need to know what I'm getting into. So there's definitely more research that needs to be done, asking people that's in the industries, setting up meetings, a lot of talking through what's happening, what they're doing, and seeing where that fits into my projects. It's not just the get up and go anymore. It's now just kind of first getting my head around the new spaces and the information.
My youngest daughter has this amazing saying, and she said this when she was tiny, and so it's always been kind of a joke in our family, because the way she said it was so adult for like a 4-year-old or whatever at the time. But she said, the one day I was struggling with something and I was like, battling with this thing, and she said, well, preparation is the key to success. And I was like, exactly, right? I was running into a project without thinking about it, without planning it, without thinking it through, and doing the research and then bumping my head. And, it was exactly that situation. And just from a 4-year-old, like, preparation is the key to success. Like, really? Where did you even get this knowledge from? And that was so it's just like God speaking through my 4-year-old. And since then, this is like something in our household that we will joke with a lot of times when we get stuck with something or bump our heads, against the wall with something. And it's like, yep, preparation is the key to success, right? It was unprepared. So yeah, and I kind of tweak that now. It's now preparation and perseverance is the key to success. And so I kind of, the 2 P's now. So true.
Right.
So true.
Right.
Yeah. If you look at yourself now, what advice would you give your, younger self before you have kids to make the process a little bit easier?
I would say there's no perfect fit. There's no set, like, this is how it's supposed to be. And I think having grace for yourself. If I knew what I know now, I would have a lot of more grace. Like, I would know that I cannot compare myself to my friends or to other people out there, because my journey is my own. And it doesn't matter what doors open, what door close, and where that path is taking you, and how you feel the morning when you stand up. Like, it's about just you and where you want to go, like setting a goal. And it can take maybe it did take you a week to get to that goal. Now it's taking you a month. That's okay. Like, having grace that it's okay. You're doing great. Like, you can do this. And if it takes longer, it's okay. It's a season. So whether it's in business, whether it's during the pregnancy, whether it's having a baby and having to go through the mourning of who you were and moving into this new person, finding yourself again, it takes time. It takes a whole new you. So no one is the same. So, and that is what I would love to leave with women listening, that you're doing great and you are okay. You can do this. at your pace, on your time, your way. It doesn't need to be the way that the person next to you is doing it.
Amen. Oh, so powerful. Ruth, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from South Africa. And we scheduled this, like, it's evening now. It's so late in the evening, and I know you're sleep deprived. You look wonderful for someone who is not sleeping. And I'm so, so grateful for your time today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Lorna.
Well, that is it from me, Lorna Grayling and M-powerTV. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our episodes. And until next week, goodbye.